Family is often described as the place where we feel the most love, support, and belonging. It is supposed to be the group of people who stand by us when the rest of the world turns away. From childhood, most of us grow up hearing the same message again and again. Family is everything. We are told that no matter what happens in life, our family will always be there for us, and we should always stay connected to them. But for many people, reality feels very different. Some individuals slowly begin to distance themselves from their own families. At first it might look small. They stop calling as often. They visit less frequently. Conversations become shorter and more careful. And eventually, something even more difficult can happen. They stop communicating completely. To outsiders, this decision can feel shocking. People often wonder how someone could walk away from their own parents, siblings, or relatives. Society tends to judge these choices quickly, assuming the person must be selfish, ungrateful, or overly sensitive. However, psychology tells a much deeper story. Cutting off family is rarely a sudden or impulsive decision. It is usually the result of years of emotional experiences that slowly shape how a person feels about their relationships. What appears to be a sudden separation is often the final step in a long internal struggle. Human beings have a deep, psychological need for emotional safety. Emotional safety means feeling respected, understood, and accepted by the people around us. When someone feels emotionally safe, they know they can express their thoughts, feelings, and struggles without constantly being criticized or dismissed. In healthy families, disagreements still happen. People argue, misunderstand each other, and sometimes hurt each other's feelings. But even during conflict, there is still a basic sense of respect and care. Family members may disagree, but they still make an effort to understand each other. In unhealthy environments, however, that sense of safety can slowly disappear. A person may grow up feeling like their emotions are constantly invalidated. Every time they try to explain their feelings, they are told they are overreacting. When they express pain, they are told they are too sensitive. Over time, this kind of response can teach the brain that opening up emotionally is not safe. Instead of feeling supported, the person begins to feel judged or misunderstood in their own home. Another psychological factor that can lead to family cutoffs is chronic criticism. Some people grow up in environments where almost everything they do is criticized. Their choices are questioned, their mistakes are highlighted, and their achievements are minimized. At first, a child may try very hard to gain approval. They may try to be perfect, work harder, or change their personality just to avoid disappointing their family. But when criticism continues for years, something begins to shift inside the mind. The person may start to feel that nothing they do will ever be good enough. This constant pressure can slowly erode a person's self-esteem. Instead of feeling confident, they begin to associate family interactions with stress, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion. Another common reason people distance themselves from family is emotional manipulation. Manipulation can take many forms. Sometimes it appears as guilt. A family member might say things like, "After everything we've done for you, this is how you treat us?" Or, "If you really loved your family, you would do what we want." These statements may seem simple, but psychologically they create a powerful sense of obligation and pressure. Instead of making decisions based on their own values and needs, the person begins to feel trapped between their own well-being and the expectations placed upon them. Over time, constantly managing someone else's emotional reactions can become exhausting. Another important psychological concept related to family conflict is emotional boundaries. Boundaries are the invisible lines that protect our emotional and mental well-being. They help define what behavior we are comfortable with and what behavior crosses the line. Healthy relationships respect boundaries. When someone says they need space, time, or respect, the other person listens and adjusts their behavior. But in some families, boundaries are repeatedly ignored. A person might try to explain their limits many times, only to be dismissed or mocked. Their privacy may be violated, their choices constantly questioned, or their personal life repeatedly criticized. When boundaries are ignored again and again, the brain begins to associate the relationship with a loss of control and personal freedom. Eventually, distance may start to feel like the only way to regain that sense of control. There is also another psychological layer that many people overlook: unresolved childhood wounds. Our early experiences with caregivers shape the way we understand relationships. When children grow up in environments where their emotional needs are not consistently met, they may carry those unresolved feelings into adulthood. Sometimes those feelings remain hidden for many years. A person may continue interacting with their family while silently carrying resentment, sadness, or disappointment. But as they grow older and develop a stronger sense of self, they may start to reevaluate those experiences. They begin to notice patterns that once felt normal. They realize that certain behaviors they tolerated for years were actually harmful to their emotional well-being. This process of self-awareness can be uncomfortable and even painful. It often forces a person to question relationships that once seemed permanent. Another reason family cutoffs happen is repeated cycles of conflict. In some families, arguments never truly get resolved. The same disagreements happen over and over again. Apologies may be offered, but the underlying behavior never changes. Each cycle leaves emotional scars that slowly accumulate over time. Eventually, the person may reach a point where they feel emotionally drained. They no longer have the energy to repeat the same conversations or defend the same boundaries. At that moment, distance may begin to feel like the only way to break the cycle. It is also important to understand that cutting off family does not always come from anger. In many cases, the decision is actually driven by a desire for peace. Some individuals reach a point where they realize that continuing the relationship in its current form is harming their mental health. They may still care about their family, but the emotional cost of staying connected becomes too high. Choosing distance can sometimes be an act of self-preservation rather than rejection. Of course, this decision is rarely easy. Many people who distance themselves from family experience deep internal conflict. They may struggle with guilt, sadness, and loneliness. Even if the relationship was unhealthy, it still represents an important part of their life story. Memories, traditions, and shared history can make the separation emotionally complicated. Some people also fear being misunderstood by others. Society often places strong expectations on family loyalty, and those expectations can make individuals feel isolated when they choose a different path. However, psychology reminds us that every relationship should include mutual respect and emotional care. Family connections are important, but they should not require someone to sacrifice their mental health or sense of self. Healthy relationships are built on understanding, communication, and respect for personal boundaries. When those elements are missing for long periods of time, people naturally begin to seek environments where they feel safer and more valued. Sometimes that environment exists outside the family they were born into. In recent years, psychologists have also noticed an increasing number of people creating what they call chosen families. These are groups of friends, mentors, or supportive individuals who provide the emotional connection that someone may not have experienced in their biological family. Chosen families remind us that meaningful relationships are not defined only by blood, but also by empathy, respect, and shared support. At the same time, it is important to recognize that every family situation is different. Some relationships can heal through honest communication, therapy, and genuine effort from both sides. Others may remain complicated or distant for many years. There is no single solution that fits every family dynamic. What psychology encourages is self-awareness, understanding our emotional needs, recognizing unhealthy patterns, and making thoughtful decisions about our relationships. Sometimes those decisions lead to reconciliation, and sometimes they lead to distance. But in either case, the goal is the same: creating a life where emotional well-being, respect, and personal growth are possible. So when someone chooses to step away from their family, the story behind that decision is usually much deeper than it appears. It is rarely about a single argument or moment of anger. More often, it is about years of experiences that shaped how safe, valued, and understood a person felt in their own home. An understanding that psychological journey can help us replace judgment with empathy, because behind every difficult family decision is a human being trying to protect their emotional health and build a life where they can finally feel at peace.